operations. The same goes to the allograft. Allograft means you are taking from some other person to your body. So the next thing is, right, there are not much donor available because no one, as common like blood, no one is ready to donate bone, so you don't get the donor availability that as similar to other common like blood. The next is immunogenicity. The next thing is, as you know, the immune rejections happens, that when you take from someone else's body and keep into your body, our body thinks, oh, this is not from my own body, so it is not belong to me, so it will produce reactions against that one because it is a foreign item. I won't accept this inside my body, like that. They will reject the item, so they will produce immune reactions, and that will hamper your acceptance of the graft, and graft will reject it, and it will cause the in the implanted side, you will get a lot of reactions, so they have to take it back actually. And disease transmission, so that if the donor is having any disease or anything, that can be passed on to you, means passed on to the patient through the transplantation of this new bone from the donor. So as I told earlier, the bone related morbid injuries, what happens in India, the next the possible solution what is commercially available is this metal and metal implants, that are knee implants, shoulder implants, and other steel implants are available. Next to that, this thing, the cellular grafts are available. There are two kind of grafting. One is autografting and allografting. Autografting means taking from one patient's body and keeping it in the injured side, that is autografting. Allografting is taking from someone else's body, like someone is giving you a bone from their iliac crest and you are planting on the patient's body. For this allografting, then India have 2 centers of bone bank in India. That are the 2 centers. So the disadvantage is, when you are taking from one body or from the patient's body, you have to do 2 surgery. One is from the implant, from the donor site, where you are going to take the bone, and at the injury site where your bone is injured, there you have to make one more operation. So these 2 operations almost cost 30% of case in complications. The next is when you go to allograft, when you body and putting onto the patient's body, the problem is, first is the donor scarcity, so there are not so many people who are ready to donate bone. Next is immunogenicity and disease transmission from the allograft person. So the next alternative to this all this thing is tissue engineering. Instead of putting a metal into your body or putting off some other bone or extracting bone from some other part of your body, next thing is that wherever the bone is broken, means wherever there is a bone or any injury has happened, make them to regenerate on their own. Like, we have to just help them to regenerate on their own. That is what bone tissue engineering has evolved actually. Tissue engineering is like using the principles of life science and engineering to make a extracellular matrix like material. Extracellular matrix means, as you see bone, they are look rigid and hard structure. Similarly, make an artificial structure similar to the bone and place into the part of your injured site actually, so that it will, that material should be able to act like your natural bone and help your own bone to regenerate over that one. That is the idea of bone tissue engineering. Because whatever the current treatment modalities, they are limited by a lot of limitations, as I said, with metals, autografts, and allografts. So that is the idea of tissue engineering. I will say you exactly what it this thing. So first, before if you are going to tissue engineering, you should understand how we can mimic the natural condition. Because if you have to go for repair or regeneration or anything, you have to mimic the your artificial system very similar to our natural system. Then only you will be able to make a ideal system for any regeneration or repair, means any regeneration or repair. So if you go through the bone morphology, I won't go into biology of the system. The main point what I want to say here is, right, this bone is made up of 70% of inorganic material. The inorganic material is calcium phosphate compound. That is the 70% of this bone actually. Remaining of 30%, 22% is proteins, which includes collagen type 1 to other proteins. And another 8% is roughly because what made up of water actually. That is the total 100% of bone. So this 70% is I told as a calcium phosphate compound. This bone is called the reservoir of metal ions because this calcium phosphate compound is made as apatite in the bone in form of apatite. That is hydroxyapatite, what we say. That is calcium phosphate compound. In this compound, this calcium can be replaced by any bivalent cations present in our blood circulation. So our body uses this calcium phosphate compound to store other minerals like magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, cobalt. Every metal ion is stored in the apatite only. So only it acts as a reservoir of all the metal ions which is present in our body. The remaining 22% is collagen type 1 protein, major 90%, and rest other proteins, and 8% is water. As you see the bone is very hard structure, so you think it is very rough and doesn't have any architecture or anything, but really bone is highly ordered structure where it has a lamellar like concentric circle of matrix, collagen and hydroxyapatite matrix, where the cells resides inside the cavity, where you can see this lamellar like structure, right? They are called osteons. Like they form a very complex and well organized and ordered structure, which is supported by very ordered blood supply. What you say, Harvisian canal and Boltzmann canal, what we say, the blood supply. So the blood is the bone is very ordered structure which has a regular blood vessels running through the entire bone structure and supplies nutrients and help in the exchange of gases and removal of the excretory products from the cell. So why I came here is to show what is the composition of the bone. So when we have to design any artificial matrix for designing a bone implant or anything, we should understand what is the real composition of the natural bone, how the structure is ordered. Based on the bone, we have to make our artificial material also. So based on that, this is what in bone tissue they are trying to mimic. So as I told, bone consists of 70% inorganic material and roughly 22% organic material. So what people are trying to do, they are where a bone is broken, the exact size of a bone, broken bone, they try to make a same material, some artificial material which can mimic the natural bone. What they do, they take natural derived material. Natural derived material means, I told 22% of the bone is made up of collagen protein. So they try to make any protein like substance which can mimic collagen, including collagen they take. And they take the bioceramic materials. Bioceramic, as I told, 70% inorganic material, that is calcium phosphate material. So they take bioceramics which will mimic the calcium phosphate material, and they mix it with biomimetic agents like growth factors and the cells. As I told, the bone consists of these two materials which are embedded with the cells in the concentric circles. So they are trying to mimic the exact in vivo bone through an artificial matrix. So they mix all these materials to mimic exactly like a natural bone, and they place it into the defected site or in the injured site. So what happens, once the structure is placed at the bone site, our own body, which contains a lot of stem cells, where you see our bone marrow contains mesenchymal stem cells. These mesenchymal stem cells can differentiate into any cell. So what happens, once we keep this structure, they come there and they think, yeah, now I have a matrix for the regeneration. So that matrix should induce the cells to replace the fractured bone. By the time this new bone is growing over there by the cells there, that what we put artificial matrix, right, that has to degrade with the time. When the new bone is forming at the same time, your external matrix will degrade and it will completely absorb into your body, and your injured bone will become a natural bone. That is the idea of tissue engineering, just to make an external matrix which can mimic the exact like our in vivo bone and keep into the injured site. In the injured site, this matrix, artificial matrix, what you kept there, that will allow the bone to heal, means help our natural bone to heal on its own. So by the time it is healing, the external matrix itself, it will degrade by our body. So they will get absorbed into our body by the time new bone has grown, and they replace that external bone. So now what will happen, your bone doesn't need any external donor, or you don't need to keep any metal implant or anything. Here what will happen, your own bone will grow and it will replace the injured bone. That is the idea of bone tissue engineering. So that is a definition what I given. So here a lot of strategies are there. People have used a lot of strategies like preformed scaffold, injectable materials, cell-based bone tissue engineering, and gene-based therapy. Here I won't go into too much of biology, but what is preformed scaffold is, right? See, when a bone anywhere, like in your hand or anywhere bone breaks, what they do, first they will go to an MRI or X-ray center. They will scan your broken bone completely. They will find out the size of the bone where it is broken and shape of the broken bone completely. They will take that shape and size into a 3D formation. Then after, based on the 3D size what they made, based on that one they will form a scaffold. Artificial scaffold is an artificial matrix that is called scaffolds. So they will make an artificial, you can say like cement blocks like that. They will make an artificial material exact like same as the shape of the injured site bone, and they will make it in in vitro condition and they will place into the patient's body. That is called preformed scaffold. Preformed means before keeping into the body itself, you measure the depth and size of the bone what is broken and you make it in vitro external conditions and you keep into the patient's body. That is preformed scaffolds. Next is injectable materials. Injectable materials is, that is instead of measuring everything, like instead of going to measure size or anything, somewhere like in your skull some break happens, like somewhere you fall down, your skull breaks or anything, the injury won't be like a regular broken bone or anything. It will be like some irregular shaped damage or anything. Those time you cannot go for any 3D software to design a exact matrix, extract the same shape of your material and you can put the system. So what they do here, they make a injectable material like gel. They will be gel outside in the room temperature, like in outside the body, but when they put into the damaged sites, they will fill the damaged site completely and they will settle as a solid material. There are a lot of techniques, like some materials gel at 37 degrees Celsius, so they keep at 25 degrees Celsius till they inject into patient's body. When they inject into patient's body, our body temperature is 37, so they will gel inside the 37 degrees Celsius to fill the complete your damaged bone or anything, or some few are enzyme responsive, if you are photothermal responsive, like that. There are so many responses. System is there. So next is cell-based bone tissue engineering, where along with the artificial matrix, they thought just see already a patient's body is injured actually, so the bone is broken already there. So when you just keep an artificial matrix there, already it is like his body is suffering from already a big problem. You are just keeping a matrix there. The cells which are near that circuit, they will be already damaged. So they have to arrive to the damaged site to replacing the new bone. They will take a lot of time because already his body is compromised actually. So to instead of relying on his own body cells, what they do, they isolate cells from his other bone part or from other body part where healthy cells are there. They put into this artificial matrix in the in vitro conditions, grow them to enough size, like they form almost like a bone, and then they keep it into the patient's body, so the healing will be much faster. Then the people use gene-based therapy. I don't want to go so deep into biology. So here the why the Qs is very important is, when they started using these biomaterials, there are three generations of biomaterial. When they started this tissue engineering as a solution to all these problems, they started with the first generation of biomaterial in 1960s to 1970s, where they thought, see, they initially thought the bone is just material that support physically to your organs and it provides you mobility. Okay, so they thought it is giving a physical support to your body. So in the first generation of biomaterials, what they thought, it should be able to the materials which were able to just help in the physical support. So they thought, when the broken bone is there, keep a material which will give the same power to the bone, broken bone, and you are able to do the same lifting, mobility, everything like that same way. It doesn't need to induce any new bone formation or anything. They didn't want that one. They just wanted an inert material which should not produce harm reaction to our body, and it should not produce good reaction also. Just it should be inert and support physically our bone in mobility and weight managing like that. But later they found out after 10 or 15 years of this thing, this inert material used to fail actually. They used to cause stress in the area of the implantation. So they have to go for one more surgery or anything. Then the people came to know, no, this is not working. We will go into the next generation of material. In the next generation of material, they thought they should be more bioabsorbable or bioresorbable and or bioactive. Bioactive means now they thought instead of being inert, they should have produced good response. That is, good response means they should induce our body to make new bone generation, like that they thought. Means they should be able to new bone. They should be active. They should be able to induce our fractured bone site to make a new bone. They should be biologically active, like that. Then in the third generation, they thought, no, not only it should induce the new bone formation, they also should get absorbed into our body. Means they should be able to absorb into the body by the time new bone is forming in your body, like that they thought. That is the third generation of biomaterial, which are called smart biomaterial. Means they will be able to induce new bone formation also. By the time new bone is forming, they will dissolve, they will get diluted and dissolved into our body, and then they will be absorbed by your body. These are the three generations of biomaterial what we are seeing right now. So these are the materials that are employed in forming the bone tissue healing scaffold. As I told, in bone 70% is inorganic material. So they tried inorganic material as base for forming this artificial matrix, which includes natural coralline hydroxyapatite. That is, in seaweeds, you can say, in the sea sites, you can say small shell-like structures which are secreted by algae. They are hydroxyapatite only. You can extract hydroxyapatite from them, and you can make them synthetically also. Calcium phosphate you can prepare through with chemical synthesis. You can make this all this bioblast, other bioceramics also through chemical methods, as you know better than me. Then they used polymers, because remaining 22% is polymers. So they used natural polymers initially, that is collagen, gelatin, because collagen is the natural this thing which is present in our bone. Same way they try to mimic the same way of polymers which is present in our the system, and they thought these natural polymers are very costly and they don't give much mechanical support as they expected. So they moved into synthetic polymers like PVA, PEG, PLJ. They gave good mechanical support, but they were not able to give a good biological response as compared to the natural system. So then they went into composite, because natural bone is not just made up of polymer, not just made up of inorganic material. It is made up of both the systems. So what they thought, we will mix these two things to make a composite system very similar to natural environment. So they will be able to mimic the natural environment to the sets. So they will be able to replace your injured bone, like that. So only composites came more into the application right now. So these are the commercially available tissue healing products for bone healing. Most of them are initially were based on the proteins like collagen, decellularized matrix, like that they tried actually. Now recently they are trying this tricalcium phosphate, calcium sulfate, like inorganic materials also as a solution to the bone fracture and other things. But most of them are from outside India. Actually, none of them is from India. Most of the commercial products and tissue healing is from India, no, from USA and other European countries. And India, it is coming up, as you can say. So when you start bone tissue healing as your topic, today you are thinking you want to start as a bone tissue engineer to design a scaffold for your any injury or any bone related issues. First you have to consider few of the main challenges that are, first you have to select appropriate cell type, means which kind of cell you want to put into the body. Next is selection of the scaffolding materials, that is what kind of material you have to make your scaffold, that artificial matrix you have to make. Next is what is the structural complexity and cell coordination. Means structural complexity means, see, bone which is there in your hand, bone which is there on your fence, their structure and their mechanical strength will be different from each of them. So as per, if a bone is broken in your hand actually, then you have to make bone structural complexity and mechanical strength very similar to the bone in hand. If there is a bone which is broken in your skull, they are not as this thing as structured as a long bones. So you have to check the structural complexity based on which bone is broken. Based on the time you have to achieve the structural complexity. Next, vascularization and angiogenesis. These two angiogenesis and osteogenesis, these two terms I will explain what it is, because they are technical terms. It will give lot much of these things. So these are the major challenges. But apart in this major challenges, what you can see, this section of cell types, scaffolding materials, structural complexity, this everything you can do in vitro condition, because you know this is the bone I'm going to target. So you will know, okay, this kind of bone, what cell is needed, this kind of bone, which material will be good, this kind of bone, what its strength it is there, so which structure I have to make like that. These are the things you can sit in the in vitro system only, and you can design this all these challenges by yourself. But the main important thing is these two aspects, what is called osteogenesis and angiogenesis, because these are related to cells actually. So whatever you do in vitro, once unless it is done in vivo, it won't be same, because this cellular process in vitro conditions and in vivo conditions, it will be very difficult, so very different actually. So only these two are the more major challenges compared to this system. If you say your 30% of the success of your material depends upon the first 5 points, the major of the point, like 70% of success of your material depends upon the later 2 points, which is more crucial actually. So I will say what is osteogenesis and angiogenesis. The first figure is osteogenesis. Osteo means bone. So osteogenesis means formation of bone cells from the mesenchymal stem cells. That is just from mesenchymal stem cells, how they convert into osteoblast cells, means bone cells. That is osteogenesis. That is normal MSC, mesenchymal stem cells, should convert into osteoblast cells, that into bone cells. That is osteogenesis. Angiogenesis means blood vessel formation. Best example is, right, when you fall down or anywhere you this while playing, you anywhere you get a scratch or anything, you can see blood will come, because the blood vessels in that area, they get teared in that place actually. After few days you will form a scar formation, then after that again your skin will become normal. In this meantime, what will happen, your blood vessels, wherever a scratch was there, all the blood vessels were running through the place, they might have scratched, maybe they will be ruptured in that place. But after some time, what will happen, the nearby blood vessels which are not ruptured, they will provide endothelial cells, that is the blood vessel forming cells, and they will form a new blood vessels in your damaged area. The new blood, the scratched means the ruptured blood vessels will be replaced by new blood vessels. That is formation of a blood vessel from a existing nearby blood vessels. Like when bone breaks, the blood circulation throughout the bone, they might have cut off right now. So there won't be any blood circulation or any movement inside the system. So what will happen? So at the time, the bone nearby blood vessels which are not ruptured, they will give the new cells to the place, and they will form a new blood vessels. That is called angiogenesis. So these two processes are cellular process, which is very necessary. Why necessary is, during our embryo, like when from embryo to adult stage, these are the two processes where the bone formation happens, like intramembranous ossification and endochondral ossification. You need not to know about the biology of this process or anything. This intramembranous ossification is the process where your skull bones form actually, like when your flat bones like a skull, your hip bones form. This endochondral ossification process, your longer bones like limb, your leg bones, everything form through this second process only. Here if you note, both this process needs major two things. First is mesenchymal stem cells has to convert into osteoblast cells. Then the next, in the first figure only, you can see the down two figures where blood vessel, the red color veins are red, that is a blood vessel formation. They only complete your bone formation even in your embryo time. Similarly, in the second figure also, if you see, the mesenchymal stem cell will convert into osteoblast cells, and the red color, which is network is coming from outside, they show that blood vessel formation is very necessary for your bone formation. So if even in natural bone formation these two processes very necessary, then they are very necessary for your healing process. So that is the ultimate achievement what you need in designing any material for your tissue regeneration. So this is the this thing what we try to do in bone tissue engineering. First you make a scaffold material, artificial material, and put cells or any biological cues into the system and place into your broken bone, and you expect them to heal with time. But if these two processes is not happening, in case if these two processes not happening, what will happen? The cells which are going to grow over, that means the bone regeneration won't be very accurate. It will lead to again and again more breakage only. So these two processes has to be controlled actually. This looks like biology, but lot of chemistry is involved in these things. Means I can say you more clearly. So as I told, angiogenesis and osteogenesis are the two processes. So angiogenesis, formation of new blood vessels from the existing blood vessels. Osteogenesis, formation of bone cells from a mesenchymal stem cells. So people thought how to make angiogenesis, how to induce angiogenesis. Like lot of cellular pathways are induced by messaging proteins. Actually, you can say like VGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, PDGF, and basic epidermal growth factor. Like that, these are the proteins, are the growth factors. They generally induce the blood vessel formation, which happens in natural environment. As we know, like little bit of biology, that this growth factors are signaling molecules. They induce the formation of blood vessels or any cellular pathways. So what they used to do in the scaffold materials, like in the artificial matrix, they used to add this proteins and other things into the matrix, and they used to give it to the body. But these proteins and everything are very costly, and they cannot be kept at room temperature. They cannot be kept at high temperature. So within a day, if you keep it outside, they will lose their activity. They will degrade very badly. So the thing is, right, they will increase the cost of your scaffold. So what will happen? Your material won't be available to any normal people or even to a middle economy people. That is the problem of these old strategies. So next, what people thought to these strategies actually, they wanted the material itself to be angiogenic. Angiogenic means they should be able to induce this same process by the material itself. Means instead of supplying any external growth factor or anything, your material itself very active. It is able to induce this same process on its own like that. That is called intrinsically pro-angiogenic biomaterial. So I will give you the idea what is this thing. So people used a lot of materials which can induce angiogenesis, like which can induce the same things by themselves, like a lot of proteins, as I told, the peptides, as I told. The next important thing is, right, this is the thing, what I want to say is this ceramic materials such as beta tricalcium phosphate, bioglasses, acrylonite, and carbon-based material like graphene oxide, reduced graphene oxide, selenized graphene oxide. These materials are able to do the same things what the proteins are used to do at a very cheaper rate. So these chemical cues were able to do exactly the same thing as the biological cues like growth factors and other things, but at a very cheaper rate. And when you are making a material out of the ceramic material, making a calcium phosphate compound or any bioglass, it won't cost more than 100 rupees per gram. But if you think about making a material added with any biological factors like growth factors or anything, you can say even μg of your growth factor is more than 50,000, 60,000 you can expect, and their activity won't be very long. Within 24 hours, VGF bioactivity means their lifetime is just 24 to 48 hours only. Within the time they will lose their activity. But this ceramic materials, they can withstand in your body for 3 months to 6 months in time, and they can induce the same process again and again at a sustainable fashion, and they will be able to heal your bone at much cheaper rate compared to the other biological strategies, and they will be able to provide a much commercial viable product. Means commercially viable products compared to the previous strategies what people were exploiting till now. I will say you how it happens. Similarly, in osteogenesis also, people used to growth factors and the protein, so much of things to make that matrix which will induce the new bone cell formation like that. But instead of these things, people started using the materials which they are itself osteogenic materials. So among them, these are the materials hydroxyapatite, because I told our bone is made up of 70% inorganic material. So when you use inorganic material like calcium phosphate material by yourself, so what will happen? They will mimic the 70% of your natural bone. So of course they will itself induce the bone formation. Instead of using this proteins or anything, you can use this ceramic material. They can induce the same bone formation, means osteogenesis at a cheaper rate compared to a more on this biologically dependent, biological material dependent biomaterials actually. So this is the idea. the physical chemical cues in the bone tissue engineering. What they have made is they are making the tissue engineering product. They can make them very cheap, and they can make even the normal or the middle class people to offer this treatment at a cheap rate compared to what right now available it is. If you think about the ceramic material, here I have given one simple example of a figure where in a hydroxide here I have shown picture where the dissolution ions, like the metal ions, what is released from them, and the surface biomolecules where you put a new molecule or anything, their composition, their size, their shape, they can give a cue to the endogenous cells present in the patient body. Then they can induce this process itself without need of any external putting any growth factor or any signaling molecule into the scaffold. No need of those things. This scaffold itself will be able to guide the patient body cells into osteogenesis and angiogenesis to induce the new bone formation. That is the idea of this biophysical cues actually. So here I am giving one of the example, that is calcium hydroxide. It is an calcium phosphate and hydroxyl group containing material at a ratio of 1.67 actually, calcium to phosphate ratio you can say. That is calcium hydroxide. This green ions are these calcium ions. So the people have found out there are certain metal ions like cobalt, nickel, tungsten metal ions, all of the tungsten metal ions like cobalt, nickel, zinc, cobalt, nickel, copper, these metal ions, they can induce angiogenesis and osteogenesis through acting on certain cellular pathways, like inducing some expression of some proteins in the cells, inside the cells. They can induce the same process. So as like we can relate it to this thing. Our body is storing other minerals like cobalt, magnesium inside this calcium hydroxide in the apatite structure only, replacing the calcium ions and the hydroxide ions. So only our natural body is storing them in this way, so that whenever any problem, means they act as an ion reservoir also. But apart from that one, these metal ions also support other bone remodeling, bone restructuring, and also in osteogenesis and angiogenesis. So only our natural bone itself having this thing. So now people are exploiting the same strategy only in this calcium hydroxide material. They are replacing this calcium and hydroxyl ions like cations and anions with the biologically active other materials like other ions which can induce this process. So this material can make the material very cheaper and biologically active. So here the strategy is simple: remove this calcium ions and replace it with other metal ions which can do this process at a much cheaper rate and more commercially viable. So this is what I worked in one of my paper. What we have done, we exploited a pathway that is based on cobalt metal ions. So I don't want to fill into biology. The idea is similarly in the in hypoxia, means in cancer patients or anywhere where your tumor is growing in very big size, there the blood vessel formation happens very faster actually. The reason is this pathway actually. In this pathway, our body needs oxygen and Fe2 plus ions for forming the new blood vessels actually. So in cancer patients, O2 will be less, so that pathway will help in the formation of angiogenesis. But in case of if you want to mimic the same idea, this Fe2 plus ion is very necessary for stopping this pathway. So if you replace this Fe2 plus ion with some other similar ions, what will happen? They will not stop this pathway and your angiogenesis will happen. That is the idea of this metal ions. So few of the metal ions like cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, magnesium can remove this Fe2 plus ions in this pathway, and they can let this pathway to induce angiogenesis. So instead of relying on any growth factor or anything, you put this cobalt ion into this hydroxide material in form of doping or anything and place into your body. This material will induce the cells inside the body to produce this growth factors VGF itself, and they will lead to angiogenesis and osteogenesis, and they will heal your bone at a much cheaper rate compared to the other thing. So instead of all this biological pathways, whatever this thing, they can be controlled through simple chemical cues, and these chemical cues can give a very better replacement to the more sophisticated strategies of treatment what we are following right now. This chemical cues based strategies can give us a much cheaper and much much commercially viable products, which can help even the middle class and the poor people to get treated with this sophisticated techniques actually. So based on this one, we have worked on making hydroxyapatite doped with cobalt actually. It is a simple process where we taken calcium salt on phosphate salt and we mixed this thing to a chemical precipitation method, as you people know. In this one, in the calcium source, we added a little bit of cobalt actually to replace the part of the calcium with cobalt, and we studied their chemical properties, like physical chemical properties, like how their structure looks, how their release of metal ion happens, and this is the biological data. So I don't want to explain all the data. Here the figure F you can see, figure F. Here the system is HAN2 system, which is doped, which is added with cobalt ion. Here the HA2 is the system which is not added with any other metal ion. This simple calcium phosphate. Here they are cultured with the bone cells actually. In HA2, if you see, they are simply cell-like structure, like simply individually like gold structure, that is round shape structure, that are simple cells actually. In HAN2, if you see in the figure F, that has formed a very hard-like structure. That the reason is the cells, they formed as I told in the bone structure, they will form concentric lamellar-like structure and they will secrete matrix around them. Right? Same way here, the cobalt doped system, they were able to induce these cells to form a bone-like structure. They were able to clump together and they are able to segregate the matrix around them to form a bone-like structure. Similarly, if you see the figure K actually, here these are endothelial cells. Endothelial cells means blood vessel forming cells. Here HA2 is the same system where the cells are present individually, like in single dot it is looking. But the same system, when they are treated with this cobalt doped system, you can say they are forming a network-like structure. You can see they are continuous and networks-like structure. So they are forming, they are able to induce them to blood vessel. For blood vessel formation, this endothelial cells has to form a network-like structure. So they are able to do the same thing like other, if you might have given the same growth factors or anything, they might have done the same thing only. But simple of doping a cobalt ion into the calcium phosphate matrix, they are able to do the same thing to the cells. They are able to induce this thing at much cheaper rate. My production of this hydroxyapatite 1 gram is less than 60 rupees. The raw materials which is needed for the production of this 1 gram of hydroxyapatite is almost cobalt hydroxyapatite is less than 60 rupees. But the same thing, if I have to induce the same process with biological cues like the growth factors or ECM proteins like collagen or anything, they will take more than 50-60,000 to make the same process to be commercially viable. And the next thing is, right, you can't keep this material after making the artificial material, you cannot keep them at room temperature, or you cannot store them at any high temperature or anything. You have to keep them only in the 4 degree or less than 4 degree temperature until it is used. But in case of this hydroxyapatite material, anything, even you subject to 400-500 degrees Celsius, or you leave it for 4 or 5 months inside 37 degrees Celsius, also nothing will happen to them until even after that you keep into a patient's body also, they will be able to perform the same result as like this thing. So that is the idea of this thing. I don't want to take much of your time because it will. Here I am giving you one of the simple example is that what will be the scope for future. The thing is, right, more than 5 to 20% of the bone fractures, whatever happened, that doesn't heal anything. Means they don't heal at all. They need a scaffold actually. The one of the best example is vertebral column compression. You have seen with old age people, means the people who are with old age, their spine used to bend down, and their spine used to compress actually. They won't be able to stand erect, they won't be able to walk properly. That is one of the biggest this thing what old age people face in this thing. Like this thing. The treatment of this one, vertebroplasty, what they used to do, they used to balloon like material into your vertebral column and they blow it with some calcium phosphate, normal calcium phosphate material added with any growth factor or anything, whatever they do, and they fill it with this thing. It costs around 250,000 Indian rupees for making this thing. But if you think the same system, if you make a calcium phosphate material added with cobalt or added with even a cell or anything, and you put into the spine person or any vertebral column affected person, the same process will happen at a much cheaper rate, and the person full injured spine will be replaced by a fresh spine, like fresh bone at the same place, without needing for much time for the healing or complication of any operation or anything, or you think about much cost or repetitive treatment or anything. And this can and this treatment, whatever I calculated, this treatment won't cost more than 8,000 rupees, even they take doctor fees or any this thing, it won't cost more than 50,000 for the entire procedure to happen. So there is a lot of scope of this chemical cues like this inorganic materials into bone tissue healing, which can give a way to more commercially viable constructs in comparison to whatever the current treatment methods or modalities what is have been observed till now in our tissue engineering side. So people are more moving towards like inorganic materials and coating them with some plant-based material which are more cheaper and make them more biologically active, and apply for tissue engineering to induce the same what I told osteogenesis and angiogenesis process to make a commercially viable construct. Sorry if I might have told a lot of biology, if it might have confused you or anything. And my twist is like the chemical cues can make the tissue engineering more commercially viable and cheaper, and can make the system available for even the middle class population, and it is very good for developing countries like India. That is what I wanted to say through this webinar actually. If you have any of the doubts, please you can ask me.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Can a bone repaired by bone tissue engineering again be damaged?
Ma'am? Ma'am, actually, yes. Thank you for asking questions. Actually, if your replacement is happening properly, like I can here. Yeah, here you can see the broken bone, right? If the damage is completely replaced by a new bone, then there is a very less chance it will break actually. But if the union, if your material is not sufficient to induce that bone formation, what will happen? From the end, it will be much stronger. When it moving towards the side, from the both the side, if you are moving towards the center, in the middle it will be much weaker. It is more prone to fracture actually. But if your material is very good material, it is able to induce this two process, and they are able to form a new bone completely. Then it will be like your natural bone. They won't go into any damage. They are not more prone to any other damage, as risky as other treatment methods like putting a metal shield or putting a some other bone from some other side like that. Am I answered your questions, ma'am?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
If any student has any question, please you may ask.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
if the material is not so good, how many times the damaged bone can be treated like this?
Means the same bone, how much time it can be treated like it you have to say? You are asking, ma'am. Ma'am? Ma'am,
Sir, you said na materials. If material is not good, then
yes, ma'am. It will lead to delayed union, ma'am, or anisotropic union. That is, it won't be even throughout the system. Means like if the material is not good, like so the idea is like, ma'am, if a bone is broken here, like if the bone is broken from this end to this end, where you can see from this two arrows here, if your material is not able to induce a new blood vessel formation, like if it is not able to form blood vessel, generally blood vessels is the thing which give nutrients and give gas, oxygen, and help in gases exchange, and helps in removal of excretory products actually. So when you keep a scaffold like this much size scaffold, if you keep there, like any artificial matrix you keep there, if there is no blood vessel formation throughout the system, what will happen? The cells which are moving towards the center from both ends, the cells which are in the center, they won't get nutrients, they won't get any oxygen or anything, they will die at the center. so they won't make any bone or anything. But the cells which are at the side actually, which are at the both the broken near the broken ends actually, they will get all the nutrient. So they will form bone actually there. They will form a bone. So when you move from this end, from the both the end towards center, the strength of the bone will decrease. So it is like it anisotropy from the end to the middle. So the middle part will be more prone to the broken system actually. So only we need to induce angiogenesis, so that if there is a blood supply throughout the broken bone, throughout the artificial matrix, what will happen? The cells from the end to the core of the artificial graft, they will be uniform actually. They will be getting the nutrition, they will be getting the oxygen, everything. They will be able to survive. They will make a uniform bone throughout the artificial matrix, throughout the broken end actually, throughout the damaged site actually. But if this two processes is not happening, like if angiogenesis or osteogenesis is not happening, so the blood supply won't be there and new bone formation won't happen properly. Some places it will be strong, some places it will be weak. Generally in center it will be very weak, so the bone will be more prone to the breakage. But if your material is good enough to induce these two processes, that is osteogenesis and angiogenesis, they will be able to form a complete bone without any it can mimic it will form the same natural bone as like before broken. It won't be prone to any damage or anything.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Or any question?
If I confused anything, you can ask me again. Means if any slide I messed up or anything, like if I didn't present it properly or anything, you can ask me. I can explain again. Also, I don't have an issue. Even if you have any query regarding my this thing, I can reply in mail or through my phone number. Also, you can ask me anything. Whatever I know, I will be able to explain to you. If I don't know, also I will refer and I will inform you. And don't hesitate to ask me any questions. You can ask me as I'm also still student side only. Any students can ask me.
So I think that there is no more question from student side.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
70.
Yes, sir.
Hello. 70. One of the honorable participant, Oshini Kumar, with us.
Yes, sir.
In the webinar. He was one of the speaker of webinar last year.
Yes, sir. I also remember that.
Yes. So I request Oshini sir, please tell something
yes, sir,
about.
Please say something. Oshini sir, please say something.
A very good evening to all respected members. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I would again like to thank Department of Chemistry, Cooch Behar University for this beautiful webinar, and I'm very grateful to all the team members for organizing this. And I am privileged that I got to hear such a nice lecture on bone tissue engineering. And again, it is again my privilege that I know Dr. Senthil personally, and I was fortunate enough to work with him, though for a very few days, but I was really fortunate to work with him. And I still ask him so many doubts relating to this, because my field is also related to biomaterials, and he's also working extensively on biomaterials. So it is a very great, I would say, mutual relationship that I share, and I am really lucky to have him as my friend and guide at times. And since it was really a surprise for me that sir just asked me, and you all asked me to speak something, I would really extend my heartiest thanks again for the whole team that last year they found me kind of eligible to speak and share my views on a topic that was scheduled last year, that was on vaccines. So right now, I don't have anything more to say on this, but really thanks to the whole team of Coach Bihar University. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I just saw that our principal sir just joined us. Welcome, sir. Now I would like to request our honorable principal sir, respected Dr. Pankaj Kumar Devnath, to say something. Sir.
A very good evening to all of you present here. Actually, I am outside my home and I'm in the marketplace. So anyhow, I am joining this. So first of all, I would like to thank and I would like to convey our sincere gratitude to Senthil Guru, the Research Associate of IIT Delhi, who has just completed his very important lecture on a particular topic for the students of Department of Chemistry. And so this is really a very proud moment. Hello. So this is really very proud moment for all of us, for all the stakeholders of Coach Bihar College, especially for the students of Department of Chemistry. I again like to thank Dr. Senthil Guru for his consent and for sparing his valuable time, especially for the students of our Coach Bihar College. Thank you, sir, again from my part and from the part of all the stakeholders of Coach Bihar College.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to thank our HOD Department of Chemistry, Dr. Ravindra De, Dr. Snehashi Bhakto, and all other faculty members of Department of Chemistry for organizing such a very important lecture. And I think this will help all the students today and for the future also. So thank you again, all of you present here. So I would like to conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Principal Sir. And thank you so much, our today's resource person, Dr. Senthil Guru Sir. It was really a very informative webinar. We came to know about many new concepts about bone tissue engineering, and I hope our students also enjoyed a lot. Now I would like to request Mr. Origno Saha, Faculty of Department of Chemistry, Coach Bihar College, to convey the vote of thanks to our resource person. Please, Origno sir.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening to all the dignitary participants, honorary speaker, my dear students, and all the faculty members of Coach Bihar College. I am Origno Saha, faculty member of Department of Chemistry, Coach Bihar College. On behalf of my department, I would like to express my heartiest gratitude to the honorary speaker, Dr. Senthil Guru, for delivering his very important and informative lecture. I think we all enjoyed this session. I also want to thank him for connecting Coach Bihar College with a prime institute of India. I want to give thanks to our principal, Dr. Pankaj Kumar Devnath, for encouraging us to organize such kind of scientific webinar. I want to give thanks to the head of the department, Dr. Ravindra De, for leading us from front. I want to give special thanks to the convener of this program, Dr. Snehashish Bhakto, for inviting our speaker, Dr. Senthil Guru. I want to give my heartiest thanks to Shravanti Ghosh ma'am for conducting this program with her beautiful anchoring. I am also giving thanks to Subarna Panchanan ma'am for her valuable advices and technical support. last but not the least, I want to give thanks to all the participants for their active participation, which makes this event successful. Now I want to request the participants to take over the mic to share their experience with us. Please, if you have any views and experience regarding this program, you may share your experience with us. If you have any from our students.
Yes, Ritoma, please share your experience. You asked question to our resource person, so you please share your experience.
Hello, I am Srikam. Thank you so much, sir, for this session. We are very grateful that we get your webinar session in that evening. The whole process is very much amazing, and you also spoke the science behind very amazingly. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So we are now at the end of our today's program. Thank you so much all of your kind participation. Thank you again, Dr. Senthil Guru sir, for such an amazing presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now taking the permission from my yes, sir.
Okay, continue.
So taking the permission from my HOD and other faculties of our department, I want to conclude or I want to end the today's webinar.
Okay. You may end the program.
Okay, sir. Thank you all. Good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
thank
much.
you. Senthil sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I thank all the committee members and the principal and the faculty members of the college and the students for patiently listening me and encouraging me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.